Welcome everybody. I make it 7:30 in the evening here in the United Arab Emirates. So time to get started with our Doctorate of Business Administration webinar. Welcome to you all, wherever you're listening to me from and seeing me from. My name is Professor Tim Campbell. I'm a visiting Professor of International Management at the University of Northampton. And I also look after the DBA program that we run here with the Middle East intake. And we're up to our, if my memory serves me correct, I think the next intake starting in November will be our 12th intake. So I've been running the program for about 6 years now. There's 2 intakes per year. So it gives me great pleasure to tell you all about the program. And what I'm going to do is begin by giving you a presentation, 15, 20 minutes maximum, just about some key things about the DBA program. And then when I'm done, there's time for you to ask me as many questions as you want. So let's crack on then. The first thing to begin with, before I talk about the program, is where is the University of Northampton? And in fact, where is Northampton? Well, in this map of the UK here, you'll see a big arrow pointing to the city of Northampton, which is an old historic town that frequently appears in British history and has been around for an awfully long time. And it's about 100 kilometers north of London. It takes about an hour in the train. Lovely old historic town there. And it used to be just on the outside of which you would find the university. But in 2018, that's 3 years ago now, they opened a brand new campus, which is now right in the middle of the town. So it's an incredible place. In fact, if I go back to my first slide, that's just another shot of it there. So it built an entirely brand new campus on this lovely site, right in the middle of town. So that's where you'll find the university. And on that campus, in this building here, the Senate building, on one floor of it, that's dedicated just for research students, for doctoral students. So if ever you're on campus and you want to visit and you want to do some work, there's always a spot for you there to do some work on campus. The university itself, well, education dates back an awfully long time, back to the 13th century. But we would say the modern University of Northampton's origins date back about 100 years. And today it has about 14,000 students and about 1,500 staff. But I've just put that up to guide you to the University of Northampton's website, where you can do lots of reading and find all about the university and everything else. Because what I want to focus on tonight, of course, is the DBA, the doctorate program. And the question I get asked most, I suppose, when talking about the DBA or doctorate programs is, well, what exactly is a doctorate? Well, a doctorate is usually considered the terminal degree. And what we mean by that is the highest degree that you can attain. Now, there are exceptions to that, but it generally goes, you'll do a bachelor's degree, you'll do a master's degree, and then if you're very keen, like all of you are, I'm sure, you'll go on to that highest level and complete a doctorate. And there's 2 types of doctorates. One of them we call professional doctorates. And these are for people who want to study at that highest level, but who work primarily within a profession. So for example, the one you're probably most familiar with is when you get an illness, you go and see your medical doctor. Now that medical doctor has a professional doctorate, will have an MD. So that person, of course, is primarily engaged within medicine, within a profession, rather than being primarily engaged in research, which is what I'll talk about in a minute. And other professional doctorates, if you're in education, you can do a doctorate in education. If you're a pharmacist, you could do a doctorate in pharmacy. Engineers, there's a doctorate of engineering. And of course, the professional doctorate for business and management people is a DBA, the Doctorate of Business Administration. So these professional doctorates, as I say, are for people who are primarily within a profession, who want to study at that highest level. The other type of doctorate we have is for those people who are primarily engaged with research. So people you'll most often find in universities or research institutes. And they do research doctorates, the most well-known of which is a PhD, the Doctorate of Philosophy. So for you guys, you're looking at a professional doctorate for business and management people. People who are primarily engaged in business and management who want to study at that highest level. Now, these two doctorates are academically equivalent. In the UK, we call it level 8. So academically, they're on exactly the same level. They both mean, once you complete it, that you can use the title doctor. And they're actually quite similar in the fact that they're actually both research degrees. If you did a PhD, you would do one big research project. And on the DBA, as you'll see in a moment, you also do a big research project. But what the difference is the outcome. The DBA needs to be more practical, has to actually make a difference to business and management. Whereas a research doctorate or PhD in business management could be purely theoretical. So the DBAs are more practical, if you like. And I'll just show this slide, just my last word on the difference between the two. I know it's quite wordy, but I'll read through it because I think it does make quite a good point. And it says here, PhD programs in business focus intensively on preparing candidates to conduct highly specialized scholarly research. They focus on the development of new theory in management, economics, and related fields. Most PhD and business administration graduates lead to careers as university researchers and professors or as senior researchers in business or government. Okay, whereas the professional doctorate, the Doctor of Business Administration programs, focus on the application of theory rather than on the development of new theory. So the DBA, by virtue of its focus on the application of theory, has more practical applications in managerial settings than a PhD. Okay, so I think that makes the difference quite clear. But of course, it's not cut and dry. I've worked in universities with faculty, where faculty in universities have DBAs, and I've certainly known people in industry who have PhDs. So, you know, it doesn't mean you have to be one or the other. It's just the sort of the camps you fall into, if you like. All right, so enough about the differences. What sorts of things do people who do Doctorate of Business Administration programs do? What sorts of things do they research? Now, these are the topics all from our own students, all past people who are either current or past students who are doing the Northampton DBA program. And they're looking at things like critical examination of a performance management system, leadership styles and employee performance, an assessment of corporate governance in the public sector, assessing the value chain in the manufacturing business, reasons for investing in high-tech startups, resolving project conflicts, agile project management, and one of my students who was looking at knowledge transfer and management training. So you can see from that, DBA can be in anything related to business and management. Strategy, human resource management, organizational behavior, social responsibility, business ethics, anything that falls within the business and management realm. Okie dokie, let's have a look at the program itself then. Now, our next DBA intake is intake 12, which is starting quite soon. In fact, just over a month away is the first workshop on the 9th and 12th of November. And I know the people who have applied for this are going through interviews at the as this week, actually, I believe. So they're already going through the application process for this. And I'll mention a lot more about what you have to do to apply a bit later. But that's our next intake. And as I mentioned at the start, we have 2 a year. So after this one will be intake 13, which will be in May of next year. It may seem like a long time away, but it goes very quickly. And bear in mind, you need to be getting all of your application documents, everything together, at least 2 months before the start date, because I'll mention the admissions process in a moment, and it does take quite a long time. But anyway, let me just get back to how is the University of Northampton DBA taught? Well, what you do for the first 2 years is you're actually taught everything you need to know about research. And every module has a 3-day face-to-face workshop, Thursday to Saturday, except the very first one and the very last one, they're 4 days long. So they go Wednesday to Saturday. Now, it used to be before COVID that these workshops were taught here in the UAE and the professors would fly from the University of Northampton. But of course, that's not possible at the moment. And at the moment, we just don't know when it will be possible to get back to that face-to-face in classroom here in the UAE teaching. So it's still taught in exactly the same way, but we use a virtual classroom instead. So it's still live. You'll still be sitting there in front of your computer. You'll have your other classmates. You'll have your teacher coming to you, much like I am, although we use a different system. We use a bespoke education system. And then you'll be taught 9 to 5 for the 3 or 4 days. So they're still live, they're synchronous, they're face-to-face. It's just we have to use the virtual classroom at the moment. So you come along on the first workshop, you'll do principles of research, and then about 2 or 3 months later, you'll do your next module, and so on, until you've finished all 6 of those modules, which is spread out over the first 2 years. If you pass them all, you move on to the professional research stage, which is a 2 years supervision. That's when you do your thesis. And for that, you'll be supported by a director of studies and 2 supervisors. So plenty of support. So the idea of the program is the first 2 years teaches you everything you need to know to be able to complete the second 2 years. A word about assessments. The sorts of assessments you have during these facilitated modules, they're all different. There's essays, seminar presentations, portfolios, research report, there's research proposal, there's a practice viva voce. It depends on the module, and your tutors will tell you exactly what they want. But there's no exams, because exams don't really work at this sort of a level. We need to see a deeper understanding, really. So the modules are assessed in all variety of different ways, and your tutors will tell you exactly what they expect. And in that second stage, when you do the thesis, you have a big chunky 40,000 word document that comes out of it, and you're examined by a viva voce examination. Viva voce is Latin, it simply means an oral examination. So we're having to do them virtually at the moment. So you'll submit your thesis, and in the examining team, there will be an external examiner, which is somebody from a different university. It would be from a different UK university, because it's very important that the standards in UK universities are the same. So if you're getting a doctorate from Northampton, it's the same as any other British university. So this is standard across UK universities. You'll be assessed by somebody at a different university. We call that the external examiner. And then you'll be examined by somebody within the University of Northampton. We call that person an internal examiner. So you submit your thesis, those people will get a chance, they'll read it, and then they'll schedule your viva voce examination, where you will orally defend your thesis. And that used to have to happen at the only time you actually had to go to Northampton was to do that, but because of COVID, we're now having to do it virtually, so you don't need to at the moment. So it might sound a bit daunting, but trust me, it's actually a really good day, because as soon as you've done that viva, they tell you whether you're passed or not, and it could be a very happy time. So that's assessments. There's loads of support on the program. There's the International DBA program leader. That's the person who's from the University of Northampton and looks after the DBA program. You will meet the international program leader when you apply for the program, because she will be a part of the interview team. Every module has a dedicated expert tutor. As I mentioned, when you get to the thesis stage, there's a director of study and 2 supervisors. There's administration in Northampton, and also locally, if you get a bit lost and you don't know who you have to contact, Stafford can help you with that. The virtual learning environment we use is called NILE, Northampton Integrated Learning Environment. And every module has one of these virtual learning environments, one of these sites. And on there, your tutors, that's where your virtual classroom is. It's where your tutors will post videos or slides or readings or anything they think will help you or you'll be needed. It's where you submit your assignments. Everything is contained within one of these NILE sites. And there's a very extensive online library with millions of resources that you access through the university, a digital library. So there's no need to physically get any books or anything like that. And just one other word on support. So you have all the support of the people involved with the DBA program, but the university also has a graduate school, and the graduate school looks after doctoral level researchers, not just the business and management ones, but from the people from all of the other schools, the sciences and the history and the education and whatever else. And this is what the graduate school does. It says it's a university-wide framework for training, support, career preparation, and administration to help you throughout your postgraduate research degree and your early research career to achieve your potential. So this is a university-wide school that is there just to help doctoral students and has all sorts of resources. But I've just put down the bottom here, has a whole load of training courses and seminars and things you can attend. So for example, perhaps you might want to know more about how to write a literature review. You'll be able to attend one of their courses, which they run online at the moment, of course. And even usually, they normally run them some face-to-face and online anyway. You might want to know more about research ethics, or SPSS is the tool we use to analyze quantitative data, and in vivo we use to analyze qualitative data. So if you wanted to know, remember this is separate to the DBA program. You already have your modules, you'll be taught everything there. But if you feel you need a bit extra, you'll find all of this extra training at the graduate school. So as I mentioned, loads and loads of support. Okay, I can see I'm waffling on a bit, so I better let me get through these other bits. Entry requirements, they need to hold a master's degree in a business-related subject, ideally completed within the last 10 years. But if it's longer than that, as long as you can show you've been doing some training courses or things at work to keep your knowledge current, that would be okay. Need to have a minimum of 5 years work experience, at least some of which is at a senior level, and be employed in a leadership management role capable of supporting the achievement of the learning outcomes. Because when you do the facilitated modules, a number of the assessments will ask you to be looking at your own workplace. So you need to be in a role where you can actually do that. And the sorts of people on the program are very senior, senior and very senior people from all different industries on the program. When you apply, the first things are fairly standard: CV, personal statement, references, etc. You'd only need evidence of English language. If your master's was in English, for example, you'll be fine. It's just if you need it, the admissions team will ask for it. But generally, if you've studied before in English, you'd be fine. And then I just highlighted those last two things because they're important. Once you get through the first stage, where your application documents will be looked at, you'll be invited for an interview with the program leader and then with another person at the university who will know something about your subject area. And it's very important, that interview, and you must prepare for that interview because they're going to ask you all sorts of things about anything about the application documents, but they're particularly going to ask you about your research proposal. What are you thinking about researching? That's what they need to know. Just a little bit more on that proposal. Why they want a proposal at this stage before you've even started the program is that they want to find out these three things. Are you actually capable of studying at doctoral level? So they need to have a look, because remember, doctoral level is the highest level, as I mentioned. You know, it's not an easy journey, and it's a long journey, and it's a resource-intensive journey. There's time, there's money, you're juggling your job and your family and everything else. So right at the admission stage, they want to make sure anyone they admit to the program has the ability to succeed and get through that program. So that's why they look at the proposal and say, you know, can this person, are they capable of studying at doctoral level? Is their writing good enough? Then they'll be looking, does the proposed research fit within the nature of DBA? Remember I said it needs to be something practical, and obviously it needs to be something business and management. And then, does the university have an appropriate supervisor? Now, the university has supervisors in all of the major fields, but if you want to do something really technical, then they may not have somebody to supervise. So that will just be a check at this stage that you're thinking about doing something that they can supervise. But I suppose the good news for this is that Oh, hang on, I've got a little bit more to say about what the proposal. So as I mentioned, can it make a practical contribution to business and management? Can the applicant reference using the Harvard method? Can you write a brief literature review and cite some authors in the field you're proposing to study? And do you have just a basic understanding of research methods? And as I put down the bottom here, all business and management master's graduates should already have these skills. So these are in your skill set. You should now be able to, if you've done a master's in business and management, you should be able to write a proposal, and a good one. It shouldn't be daunting to you. And what I do with proposals as well, I look at them all as they come in. So before they get submitted to the university, your academic consultant at Stafford will forward it to me. I'll have a look, give my opinion, give a few comments, send it back if needs be, before it actually gets submitted to the university. It doesn't mean you'll be accepted, but it just means I can help iron out any issues that I might see beforehand. So when it does get submitted to the university, it's in the best light possible. Okay, last few things from me. Fees. Please see the Stafford Global website for the current fees, because they can change between intakes, and I want to make sure you're getting the very current ones. So check on the Stafford Global website what they are. Why should you do the DBA at Northampton? It's an investment in your future, both in your academic and professional fields. It's the highest qualification in business and management. You will contribute to business and management practice. It would be expected that your thesis would be published in an academic journal. You have international and local supervision and support. You have those workshops from leading international faculty. So many things. And the last word from me, completion of the Northampton MBA will set you apart as an expert, able to lead and manage at the highest levels. You'll have made a unique contribution to your field and developed outstanding analytical, critical, creative, and reflective skills so needed in today's business world. But whatever you choose to do with your DBA says you are an expert in what you want to do. So whether you want to move further up your own company, switch to another company, go to board level, look at consultancy, look at doing a bit of university teaching, whatever it might be. These are things that, all of these things, the DBA is going to help you. Rightio, question time. Oh, I didn't do too badly, but over 20 minutes. The easiest way to ask me a question with a big group of you is to use your question box on the right there, and I can already see lots of questions. So if you type a question for me, that is probably the easiest way to do it, and I will go through them one by one. Here's my first question. I completed my master's degree about 13 years ago, but have extensive senior managerial experience. Will I be able to apply for the program? Yes, that would be fine. It looks like you meet the managerial experience. You meet that requirement, so that looks fine. And even though your master's degree was over 10 years ago, and I said ideally less than 10 years, but some of you will be longer than that, as long as you've done some training at work, or you can point to something that you've done where you have been using, using your brain, using a bit of knowledge, then that's usually fine. So you could certainly apply with that. Here's a question about the interview. How long does it take? About 30 minutes, I think, usually the interview takes. As I mentioned, it will be with the University of Northampton's DBA program leader and another person who will be a subject person who knows about the subject you want to talk about. And the next part of the question, what should I prepare? They'll ask you anything about your application documents. So they'll ask you about your personal statement, which should include things like, why do you want to study a doctorate? Why do you want to do a DBA and not a PhD? How's it going to help you in your career? How are you going to manage your time? Because you're going to be working as well. These are the sorts of things that they'll be asking from that point of view. And they'll be asking about your master's degree and things like that. But most of the time they'll be asking you is about your research proposal. They'll be asking about what you want to research and how you're thinking about doing it. My next question, are there any additional expenses besides the fees? No, there's none at all. It used to be when the workshops were held face-to-face here in the UAE, if you lived somewhere else, our students would come from Saudi or Oman or Qatar or even further away, that you would need to pay for your travel and accommodation to get here. But because the workshops are virtual at the moment, and I just don't have any idea when that's going to change, there are no extra fees because you can obviously join wherever you are in the world. Here's one from Mohammed. I've been advised that, oh yes, here's a question about the workshops. So the workshops are currently virtual. What is covered in the workshop and how important are they? Workshops are crucial. You must attend them. They are going to teach you, as I said, everything you need to know about research. It could be accepted that, I said some of them are 3 days long and the first and the last are 4 days long. So you might have part of that where you say to the tutor, look, I have an appointment or something, I can't make that. But generally, you need to try and make these as much as you can because that's where all of this learning happens. It's where you meet the other people from your intake and you can all learn off each other. And of course, at doctoral level, you're learning quite complex stuff. So that's not something you can do on your own. You need these workshops. So they're very important to your learning. Will my degree state online distance learning? No, it won't. And it's important to realize this is not an online degree. It's a taught degree. You are being taught by university faculty. The only difference being the workshops are virtual because we simply can't have them face-to-face as we used to, but we still do not consider that an online program. You are still being taught. It is officially a part-time program. So no mention of online distance learning. Oh, this is a long question. This is Tommy from Indonesia. Your first is, so the first part is the DBA fully online e-learning so that overseas students can still work and finish? You're saying you're in Indonesia, Tommy. Absolutely. So as I've mentioned, we don't know when we'll get back to those face-to-face workshops in the UAE. But hopefully when we eventually do, what we would do is that for those who can't make the workshops, we'd continue doing an online teaching variant. And for those who can get to the workshops face-to-face, we'd do something for them. So however you start the program, we'll honor that to the end. So if you start and we've got online teaching, you'll have that until the end, even if halfway through we can get back to face-to-face. We would do both. We would cater for both. So yeah, you'll be fine with that, Tom. Next one is about cost. Have a look at the Stafford Global website for the latest fees, and your academic consultant at Stafford can help you with that. The relationship, by the way, you're probably wondering, because you'll be talking to your academic consultants from Stafford and be invited here tonight from Stafford Global. What Stafford Global does for the University of Northampton is it markets and recruits the program off campus. Here in the Middle East, primarily where I'm based, is where we, of course, most of our students generally come from. But now that we're online, we get students from all over the world, like you are, Tommy. So they do the marketing and recruitment because that's very difficult to do back on the campus in the UK to do it effectively. It's easier if you're here to do it. But once you get on the program, you are completely a student of the University of Northampton. The tutors are from there, your degree comes from there. So just bear in mind what Stafford does and what the university does. Okay, the university is the academic part of it. And you got one more question. What is your suggestion for overseas students who cannot leave their job but want to follow the DBA program? As I mentioned, it's fine. You can be anywhere in the world and do our program at the moment because you don't need to fly to the UAE anymore. You can do the virtual workshops. So there's no problem with that at all, wherever you're living. Rightio. This is from Elijah. The thesis proposal, what format is it going to be? Because some institutions have designed a format for the layout. Yes, you're absolutely right. Different universities will have slightly different templates or layouts, or will ask different things from the proposals. I know some universities ask for proposals for, that can be 4,000 or 5,000 words long, which I think is ridiculous before you even start the program. Fortunately, Northampton it doesn't ask for that much. It asks for a 1,000 word proposal, and it has a template. So please ask your academic consultant at Stafford, who will send you the template, and then it says quite clearly what they want in the first section, what they want in the second section, and the third. And as I mentioned, it's only about 1,000 words, so it's not too bad. Tommy's got a couple more questions. Additional, what is the supervisor? Your supervisors come in at the thesis stage, not at the application stage. So when you do the interview for the DBA program, that will be with the program leader and just somebody else who teaches on the program. Once you get to the last 2 years and do the thesis, that's when you see your supervisory team. And Tommy's last bit of the question is, how do you finish the program timely? You get 4 years to finish the program. You'll need those 4 years. The first 2, you're doing your 2 years taught, and then it does take 2 years to do your thesis. If you absolutely have to, there's a 5th and a 6th year that you can take if you need that extra time. So there is a maximum of 6 years, but we try as much as possible to get people through in the 4-year time frame. And last question, Tommy already had a doctorate degree. Oh, very good. In fact, we have had people who on our program before who've had doctorate degrees in other subject areas, and then they've done another doctorate, the DBA, so because they wanted one in business and management. Yeah, so it doesn't matter if you have another doctorate degree, but you need, of course, to start again from the with the DBA program. Oh, here's a good question from Elijah. Is it possible to change your topic during the program? Yes, you are not committed to the topic you have in your proposal. And almost every student will change. Now, let me just qualify that. They won't, most students don't completely change their topic. If they're interested in something HRM or something strategy or something marketing, the vast majority of students will stick within that area. But the proposal they give at the start and the one they end up with at the end of 2 years, because after you do your 2 years taught modules, you do another proposal that's going to lead you onto the thesis. That proposal is often quite different to what they started with. And that's to be expected, because over that 2 years, you've learned so much more about research and research methods. So that you can absolutely change your topic. There's no problem with that at all. But we do find most students, they refine their topic over the few years rather than completely change to something else. But you could if you wanted to. You're not committed to that initial proposal that you come in with. Gina's got a question. On average, how many hours of work are needed for this DBA? Yeah, I do get asked that question quite a lot. And it's, oh, and you're saying per week. It's really tough to answer because some students just seem to be able to do things more easily than others. Some seem to have to put in a lot more work to get things done, and others seem to be able to not put in quite so much and still manage to get through. And the other thing is it depends on the module. Some people, for example, might find the quantitative methods module quite difficult, and they have to put in lots of effort for that. But then they might find another module actually quite easy, and they don't put in too much effort at all. So if I was to say, if you could put in 8 hours a week, and as you can say, I'm just saying this because it's sort of my best generalization I can give. If you can think in those sort of terms, then you're probably on the right track. So you could break it up to be sort of 3 or 4 hours, a couple of nights a week. It could be one day on a weekend or something, but roughly that would sort of be the sorts of thing to be looking at. And last one from Tommy. If I already get a doctorate degree, oh, I see what you're saying. So if you have a doctorate, do you get any waivers on, can you be exempted on any modules for the Northampton DBA? No, you can't, not on the doctorate program. We have all of our students start from the start. And it's because each module builds on each other. So even if you've done something, a similar module at another university in another part of the world, it may not necessarily quite fit what we're looking for on the Northampton DBA program. For our students, we need you to start from the beginning. So you build and the whole thing makes sense through to the end. All right, I think I've managed all my questions. If you have anything else you want to ask me, always feel free to. Where's my details? There I go. So if anything else comes to you, always feel free. You can just drop me an email And there's my contact details there, or my number here in the UAE if you want. Absolutely welcome. Hopefully, as I say, you will be, I'll see you on the next intake. Probably not for the November, because I think the applications have all already gone in for that already. And as I mentioned, they're doing their interviews, but it will be for May next year. But as I said, you need to get all the applications done at least 2 months before. So you really need to be thinking about your research proposals now. And also, I'm more than happy to comment on any proposals or ideas for topics that you have. You just email them to me and I'll tell you what I think. All right, guys, I think that's it for tonight then. Thanks so much for listening and hope to see you on the program. Bye for now.